Can you present us what is the Red Cross EU office and your role in it?
We witness a very strong mobilization from the EU member states.
Do you think Ukraine will stay high on the EU agenda?
I hope so. I certainly hope so, but we know that 6 months is not enough.
Last maybe 6 months I hear often about localization help.
You can be efficient really when you work at neighborhood level. The next one, whenever disasters happen.
Over 12 million people in Ukraine need help right now. Behind the headlines there are real lives. People trying to survive, rebuild and hold on to hope. The Red Cross is one of the few teams on the ground every day, working in taut condition to bring help and comfort. Today we speak with Magалі Mурлон from the Red Cross EU office. She's here to share European perspective on the international armed conflict and how the EU and the Red Cross network look at it. Magалі?
Yes.
I'm glad to welcome you here in our studio. Can you present us what is the Red Cross EU office and your role in it?
Okay, well, thank you, and thanks a lot for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here. So, my name is Magалі Mурлон. I'm working, so as you said, for the Red Cross EU office. It's a bit of a specific office. We're based in Brussels, and we represent the Red Cross family, so the national societies of the Red Cross from the 27 EU member states. So let's say France, Belgium, Spain, but also the one from Norway, from Iceland, and the International Federation of the Red Cross Red Crescent. We also have a memorandum of understanding, so a partnership with the Ukrainian Red Cross Society. And our role as the Red Cross EU office is to promote and defend the views of the Red Cross family vis-à-vis the EU institution. So the Commission, the European Council and the European Parliament. So we do mainly advocacy, what we call humanitarian diplomacy.
From your perspective, how has the EU responded to the full-scale invasion until now?
All right, so I would say at the Red Cross EU level, we witness really since the full-scale invasion, we witness a very strong mobilization from the EU member state, a strong mobilization from the Commission, but clearly from the very beginning a difficulty to understand the scale of it, the impact that this will have on Ukraine, but also on neighboring countries and on the global Europe. We saw, likewise, we can observe that it's been also difficult for all the Red Cross movement to really understand how important and how massive the situation was, how difficult and complex this crisis is. And so it feels that we're still always a bit behind. We're still, even 3 years later, we're still a bit behind from all perspectives, not only from a pure defense and security perspective, but also from a humanitarian aid perspective, from a community resilience perspective. How do we support our partners? So we're still behind, but I hope we are getting there, and I hope we will soon be providing really the support that Ukraine needs and that Ukraine has been requested from day one.
With other conflicts emerging, and particularly the escalation of the tension in the Middle East, do you think Ukraine will stay high on the EU agenda?
I hope so. I certainly hope so, and especially after now my visit here in Kiev. I think it's going to be difficult. The crisis in the Middle East is another extremely important and very worrying crisis, especially on the humanitarian aid agenda, but on the political as well. But I think that's exactly our duty. It's at the Red Cross EU office, I feel it's our duty to make sure that Ukraine stays high on the agenda. I'm very happy because it's one of the main priority of the Denmark government, and Denmark is now taking over the EU presidency. So at least for the next 6 months, Ukraine will feature high on the agenda, but we know that 6 months is not enough. So we will need to collectively ensure that Ukraine stays high on the agenda. Again, on all different fronts, from the humanitarian crisis perspective, but also for recovery, reconstruction, the integration process, for all those matters. I think we need to work together on that.
Likewise, following the United States aid decision to drastically reduce its support to humanitarian causes and slash its ODA, what are the consequences for the Ukrainian population and how can make sure other donors remain committed, particularly at EU?
Yeah, well, the US decision is a very unfortunate or dramatic even decision for Ukraine, but for the global world, I think, and for the entire humanitarian architecture. I think it calls for us to be more efficient. It calls for us to be working even more closely together, to really put the needs of the population at the center of the decision, to have a humanitarian architecture that is much more streamlined and much more localized. And we see that in Ukraine. We see partners, and especially, of course, the Ukrainian Red Cross Society, having such a strong capabilities and capacities. They can really manage the fund by themselves, if you want. There is really a need to make sure that the funding goes as directly as possible to the community, that we sustain the capacity of the civil society here in Ukraine for them to be able to continue to cope with the needs, and for international organization to concentrate on other needs somewhere else where the civil society is less yet able. But yeah, the same. I think we need really to continue to have this strong dialogue with the donors, the EU donors, the EU political side, and I think more important, I mean, humanitarian needs, humanitarian aid is a consequence of a political failure, always, especially in international armed conflict. So we need to call for a political solution. We need to call for the end of this conflict. And we need to make sure that they take this responsibility so that we can definitely move into the next phase, which will be reconstruction and recovery.
How can humanitarian actors in Ukraine be more efficient and work with less resources?
Well, I think they're already really efficient. From what I have seen and what I have learned, I think they are really efficient. I think it's about the capacity really to use the unfortunate opportunities of such a crisis to really develop a vibrant civil society at every single community level. You can be efficient really when you work at neighborhood level. The next one, I mean, whenever disasters happen, I mean, in the case of international conflict, it's a bit specific, but yet, I mean, we were there together a couple of days ago when we had some bombings on Kiev. And what you feel is that if something happens to you, the first one that is going to save your life is not the government, is not the municipality, is your neighbors. If there is one person that can really save your life immediately, it's your neighbors. So we need to make sure that your neighbors and yourself, because it's a reciprocity element, is trained on first aid, is trained on mental health. So it's about really developing this network of civil society organization at every local level. That's the most important, and that is extremely efficient. We've seen it in many societies. Yeah.
Last maybe 6 months, I hear often about localization help. I'm just interesting because there are many big structures like UN and others. They are too slow. Even when we had interview with Hugh, he said that this structure is they are too big and they are too slow for this. And you told about donors, and what can donors do to help ensure aid reaches those who need it most?
Yes, and I mean, you said it well. I think today the humanitarian international architecture is made in a way that is very complex, with these UN overseeing bodies, with all these international NGOs, international partners. Then you have the Red Cross, Red Crescent family and its components, the International Federation and the International Committee. On one hand, this international structure is needed in certain contexts. This international structure is needed to call on the political dimension to support not people on the ground, but to support having the political will to do so and the mobilization of the donors. So that's one element. And this advocacy, humanitarian diplomacy element that the international architecture is supposed to do is essential. We shouldn't forget it. But when it comes to aid delivery, when it comes to aid implementation on the ground, indeed, localization, and as we just said, is the best approach, especially when you work in a context where local actors are present, were present before, will be present after, and are able to provide the assistance that the population needs. So in a context like Ukraine, localization is obvious. I mean, there's no need to provide international organization to provide food to the people. The markets will continue to function in many places. So local actors like Ukrainian Red Cross can just provide multi-purpose cash assistance and support also the market to recover. There's no need for an international NGO to come and do that. So that's what we call localization. And I think Ukraine is a concrete example that will help us, the international community, learn how to foster localization in other contexts. We've seen it, and I know that the Ukrainian Red Cross Society is also supporting the civil society alliance and organization, and I think that's excellent because it's not about one organization, it's about having a diversity of local organization because there's always a diversity of needs. So the Ukrainian Red Cross is very strong on health, on mental health, on social services, on many activities, yet there is a need for other organizations at local level to take care of other needs. For example, the people with disability or education or the elderly, etc. So it's about maintaining this vibrant civil society, and localization is critical, but it's not to say that the international community is not needed. It's absolutely needed, but with a different approach. Yes.
Yeah. And I got some simple question.
Yes.
Many organization was funded by USAID.
Mm-hmm.
How Ukrainian Red Cross, not funded, but how Red Cross family works?
Mm-hmm. In terms of funding, you mean? So the Red Cross family is a very privileged organization, because each national societies of the Red Cross, first of all, is not a classic non-governmental organization. We are auxiliary to the states when it comes to humanitarian services. So we have a specific recognition from the Geneva Convention that provides the national society this auxiliary status. With it, very often comes a certain funding. So, for example, the Norwegian Red Cross is funding for its organization also by the Norwegian government, the Swedish by Sweden, etc. So that's one key element of the funding of national societies. Then, of course, in Europe, we benefit a lot from the generosity of the public, of the European citizens. They provide private funds, donation to the different Red Cross national societies. And in the case of Ukraine, when the full-scale invasion started, of course, the generosity of the public was really massive. And that has helped the national societies from France, Italy, Luxembourg to support the Ukrainian Red Cross Society in responding to the crisis, and it continues to support. It's still the case today. So you have national fundings, then you have private donations, then you have some corporate donations, so some business that also contribute to the global efforts. And then you have other types of funding from international or larger organizations like the EU, USAID. You have some very big donors like Canada, Australia, etc. So luckily, in the case of the Red Cross, because we have this very diverse opportunity to fundraise, the impact of USAID cut is not so
big.
It is important, and for people, for many of our colleagues, it has a huge impact, so I don't want to undermine that. We have seen some colleagues having to leave the organization dismissed because of the cut of this funding, but it's true that in relation to other organizations, we can maintain our activities and we can continue to support people in need. Yes.
Mhm. From the Red Cross EO perspective, what are your priorities for Ukraine in your engagement with EO decision makers?
As I said, my first priority is to maintain Ukraine high on the agenda of the EU. I think this is really critical. And to maintain it at political and humanitarian and recovery level. We need the EU to be much stronger and firm in its political dialogue, in really promoting peace and promoting the end of this conflict. That's the very first thing we want to see. I'm a humanitarian actor, so I don't engage in that. But as a European citizen, I strongly feel about that, because we are just seeing the consequence of this incapacity, of this failure of finding a political and diplomatic solution. But then, yes, no, from a humanitarian perspective, I think it's critical that the EU continues to finance humanitarian support to Ukrainians and inside and outside the country. It's true that there's also a lot of Ukrainian people that have been displaced inside the country, but also throughout Europe and throughout the world. They still need support. We will need to see how to accompany them if they decide to return. And then we need the EU to be very, very supportive of Ukraine reconstruction and recovery from this conflict. Yes.
What do you mean? Maybe it's too early to talk about recovery because war doesn't end.
No, I think it's never too early.
Why?
It's never too early because, I mean, first and again, I would be happy to hear from you as you live the war. I don't live it. But I think it's important to have this perspective of peace and to start thinking about what it will mean. And when you start discussing recovery, when you start discussing that, it's also a sign of hope, if you want. And I think when you look at it from a psychological perspective, from the next generation perspective, from the economic and development perspective, this is extremely important, because if you don't have this potential, if you don't have this prospect, that would be even more dramatic than what it is today. And I think by having a strong political, if you want, engagement from the EU to start discussing it is also a sign that, yes, we will continue to accompany you, whatever it takes, and in as long as it's needed. So that's why I think it's important not to wait, and these are conversations that should happen in parallel. One cannot eliminate the other, and vice versa.
You came to Kyiv for a high-level conference organized by Ukrainian Red Cross Society.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about it, and what are you taking away from it?
Oh, yes. Well, I was very lucky to be invited to this conference. My first time in Kyiv, and this high-level conference was organized as an exercise, if you want to take stock of 3 years of learnings from the Ukrainian Red Cross Society in responding to these complex emergencies in very different areas and elements and topics. And I must say I learned a lot. I think we are now seeing how little prepared Ukrainian population, but more than that, the whole EU and EU population and member states, and we were not prepared. None of us, nobody was prepared for that. And now it's about, okay, are we able to accept that this could happen again, everywhere else, to any of us? Are we ready to accept that and then prepare for that? Take the lessons from Ukraine to our own countries, to the whole European Union, to the continent. And to be frank, I'm not sure. I'm still not sure. I'm very happy that this pushes us to think about it. I'm very happy that the Ukrainian Red Cross was honest enough to share their learning, because they learned a lot. But it's not always easy to accept, to say, yeah, we were not prepared. Yes, we were pretty weak at the beginning, but we developed, and that's a very honest exercise they did. That I think that speak about the trust they place also in their partners, in the government that they invited to this conference, etc. So now it's up to us to have also the honesty to say we are not ready. Are we able to accept that, and to accept that we should engage, we should invest in preparedness of our society, of our system, of our infrastructure? Let's see. But I sincerely hope so, and at least I take it with me at the Red Cross EU level. It won't be sufficient. We need more than just the Red Cross EU level to work on that, but I certainly hope that this is just the beginning of a journey.
Yeah. Do you have any words to say for Ukrainians and for Europeans?
Okay. I would have so many to say, but to Ukrainians, I would say, since you separate the two, Ukrainians, I would say yes, welcome to Europe, and you are part of Europe already, and we are with you. Keep on standing, keep on being so resilient. We are clearly, I am really, how to say that, I am really amazed by the resilience of the society. And yeah, I would love to be able to do more, really. To the Europeans, I would say, let's do more, guys. Let's really do more. We need to continue to stand with Ukraine. We need to continue to find a way out of this conflict. We need to continue to support the Ukrainian population wherever they are. And let's not consider that this is far from us. This is us. This is Europe, and we have to learn. We have to learn from what you are living, and use that as an opportunity also for us. I know it's very sad to say it this way, but it's at least for us to also learn and get better prepared, all of us together.
Thank you, Magалі, for sharing the stories and insights.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching. If you want to support people in Ukraine, please stay informed and keep caring.